Going. Hope everyone's having a good day so far, good week so far. All right. Let's see here. What's going on? It's your boy Patey Pips. About to check out the market. See what it's looking like for the week. Seeing if we can get some good trade setups. I know there's a ton of news this week. I don't really care for the news. I know there is a ton of news. Let's just check it out real quick. Something I never really do. I usually just watch Abdul's for the news. And then let's take off all these that don't matter really. Okay, so still though, look at how many red folders we got this week. That's just high impact news. Let's see, tomorrow CPI numbers and the core CPI, those are definitely, let's see, they're expected to change, so that could move the market a little bit. The rate statement for the NZD, I don't trade the NZD, but that'll probably shake the market. PPI, I don't think that'll do a whole lot, but it could. Monetary policy reports for the CAD, that's probably going to shake some stuff up. Fed talking, that's going to shake some stuff. AUD employment, that's going to shake for AUD. GDP for, I don't care about that. Fed's talking again Thursday, so lots and lots of news. CPI for NZD. Outlook report for JPY, and then even more. So there's a lot of news this week, and I hate that. We'll see what these technicals are looking like, though. All right, and of course, oh, what up, though? Squad is in the chat. All right, guys, so let's see. I'm going to start on the weekly and then go down to go down to the daily and then the 4 hour. I'm going to try to stay away from those lower time frames tonight, just unless there's like some fire set up, then I'll get down to those lower time frames. But where the dollar is right now is in an interesting spot to me. You can see how the 2 weeks before we had these rejections up here, so it hasn't wanted to break this level up here, basically. So I'm just going to keep that right there as just kind of a supply area, right? If it breaks this, we're most likely coming up into these levels up here at the high of these candles probably. But for now, we haven't broke through that. And then, I mean, technically, it hasn't necessarily broken down here either yet. So I'm going to see what this area looks like on a little bit of a lower time frame as demand. But ultimately, I'm going to scoot this down. I want it to come way down in here where there was high demand off this week, right? This week just blew up. If anything, I'm looking at this as demand and this more as supply. Obviously, you can drag this over and you can see how there was big supply right here. So it lines up, and even if you bring it all the way over, it's just a clean zone regardless. So I'm going to keep these as my zones for now on the dollar, on the higher time frame, and then when we go down, we'll see how they line up. Nothing's really giving me much on the MACD on the weekly, but on the daily, it does have this divergence type look to it, and the momentum, which is the blue and red, is starting to almost break down to the downside. So when we see that start to break down, that's going to be a really kind of a signal that this should end up starting to fall a little bit. At least correct, right? Because I know for a while we've been wanting price to come get into these areas where it broke out right here and just hasn't retested quite yet. And there is that divergence, like I said. And then the 50 EMA is right here, so I expect it to come back at least to the 50 EMA. We have this zone, though, right here as well that there's definitely been some reaction at, so I'm just going to mark that off for there. That might be as far as the dollar gets, but you see this 200's holding it right there as well. So I'm expecting the dollar to correct a little bit this week at least. But it's not, doesn't look like a huge probability or anything. I'm really basing it off these weekly wicks right here. So when I go to the 4-hour, MACD signal line is below 0, so that's a bearish sentiment right there. And the MACD in the red right here, this is kind of making newer lows than we've seen in a minute. So this little impulse down that we made last week, I'm still kind of rocking with that right now. Only thing I really see that I think the dollar could do against that is if it comes up into here and tests this area one more time. If it does that, I mean, as long as it doesn't break this key supply area, then I'm really looking for the dollar to drop and correct some more, right? So I'm not even really going to draw these fibs out. I just am going to look at these zones right now. Obviously, there's some key fibs down here if you take this from swing to swing, but it's not even close to it yet, so I'm not even going to worry about it. So I'm really looking for the dollar to maybe make a head and shoulders, right? Because we have a move possibility like this to happen. Or just if it breaks these lows right here, because I guess this is another little minor zone that it's kind of held at. If it breaks these lows right here, then I expect price to end up down into this area with where these wicks are. And I'll just move it up a little bit just because it did hold pretty nicely all throughout there. So I'm looking tomorrow if that news really breaks down, because so much news, I really don't like even trading with that much news, but if it does break here with some velocity and momentum, I'll be looking for something like this. And if it comes up here quickly, I'll be trying to look to possibly fade that to the downside. Okay. So the Euro USD, on the weekly, it's almost inversed. So we have this type of supply up here. Let's bring that over there. It's rejected at, and then we have this little demand area down here. Guess it's not super inverse like it usually is. Okay, and just right now I'm just messing with these two zones right now. Last week it came into this area. You can see there is demand right here off this candle. So It definitely rejected a good amount. Got this little doji-like candle. Oop, this but yeah, got this little doji-like candle right here. So I want to see it come up into this area where there was more supply right there. So if it can come up into this, I'll be looking for sells. It's got a nice M on the weekly. The MACD is down and the signal line is down. So that's pretty much a bearish sign. On the daily, it's looking like it wants to correct, in my opinion. Looks like it has, you know, two nice bullish candles, and then we just left a wick yesterday, and it looks like it could be coming up. So this area right here, it's held pretty nicely for 1, 2, 3, just maybe a little over a week. And so if price breaks through that, I'm expecting it to come into this area at the very, very least. At the very least. And you can see the volume profile to the right, how if it does break these areas right here, there's not as much volume, and the next area of volume is kind of more up there. So that's telling me that if it does kind of break through here, we should end up going to the upside, at least for the time being. With the divergence as well, let me see where this 50 EMA is. That's a Bollinger Band. Let me see. Yeah, right in that area is where I'm really looking for price to get to. Let's go to the 4-hour. And so price was in this little pattern right here. And to me, it looks like it's trying to break out and head north. So I'm not trying to fade that. Let me get some more. You can really see right here how if it breaks this, we should slide straight up into that. So it's not really giving me any trade opportunities, I don't think, unless you want to wait for it to make one more move to the downside and then possibly catch it. What's that, 1865? So let me see here. This area down here looks a little okay. We had this sweep out right there and then a move up. So if it does come down into here, you can see there's lower interest right here. It might be an opportunity. You know, this would be kind of a very ugly head and shoulders, but it's there. And so that's the only thing I would see. If we make a quick move down, just like the dollar. If the dollar makes a quick move up, I'll be trying to look to fade it, which means I'll be looking to try to possibly buy something over here. So I'm just going to keep that there and see how this plays out. To me, it looks more like we're going to get a move. Let me get some more price into it so I can get some. Looks like to me, if this breaks, we should get some type of move like this. AU. I'm checking the chat throughout every pair, so if y'all have a question or if y'all have some pairs that you want me to look at, just let me know. I'm looking at the chat this time. Okay, AU, nice level here, and nice level here that it looks like it kind of already broke through, and maybe even already retested. So the next area I'd really want to see it go to is all the way down into here. If it's gonna even try to do that. Not this week, but okay. MACD is saying we're still bearish overall on the weekly. Daily is calling for a possible divergence move to the upside. And the area I would be looking for to sell would be more up here than it would be just right at this break and retest line. So this kind of looks like it's lagging a little bit from EU. It's got this type of pattern right here. I can see it play out from that. So let's see. let's go to the lower time frame. Most people are probably just going to continue to play the downside on this, to be honest, just because this is a strong resistance, and I'm like the opposite of that. I like to try to buy it when it's low and sell it when it's high. So I'm not going to be looking for any type of sells, even though this doesn't look terrible from this high to this low. Could definitely look for an opportunity right here. But ultimately, I see a lot more volume up here, and I would really want to see it like this. So I'm personally going to be waiting for price to get more up into this area, or at least the 61.8 area, but it's showing me on the volume profile that there's a lot more volume up here than there is. I mean, there's a good amount at the 61.8 as well. But where we are right now, I think we're going to move kind of through that faster than most might expect. It's not. I mean, there's a good amount of divergence here, so we're flat, and momentum is flat. So I'll have to see. Nothing looks pretty on AU to me right now. This would have been an okay buying opportunity right here, where it dipped down and then started to move up. I guess if it continues to the upside with this divergence, then it might be an opportunity to sell it back down to these lows. There is this imbalance right here that it might go and hit first, and I'll just be watching the divergence on AU, but probably, overall I want to see it go up more, so I don't really like just going against my higher time frame analysis. So probably not going to be trading AU just because it's going against my overall. GU. Weekly on GU. This momentum is starting to come down. Slow line is starting to come down, so I want to see more downside on GU. Overall, we have this supply area that has held for years, and ultimately, if that doesn't break, I'm not even thinking about the bulls on this. Okay, the momentum is starting to come up a little bit on the daily, so that's good for a pullback. And this would be the area that I would look for shorts, more higher probability shorts on GU. So I would love to see the market actually make its way back here. You could see the volume lines up nice. When you get a lot of consolidation, that's when you're going to have a lot of volume, obviously, because the volume is just telling you where the buyers and sellers were. Where the most buyers and sellers were, so that makes sense that there's a lot of volume up here, but we got a clean breakout. If it does get back into this, I definitely will be looking for a high probability area for the sellers to come in. This is just a nice little demand area that it's formed. It really is lower, but I'm going to mark it off like this. And since it did react like this with this nice bullish candle, if it can come down a little bit lower, I'll be looking to buy up into this supply area. So on the 4 hour, if price can make its way, because you can see nice impulse in the MACD, if price can come back into this down in here, I'll be looking for some type of trade idea. Let me go on to like the 1 hour and see. Yeah, good amount of volume. I'm going to bring out this tool that I'm starting to use a little bit more. Right now there's major divergence, so that is kind of saying we're probably going to get a pullback into this. So if you're looking for shorts, in fact, there's so much divergence. So I'm going to put an alert here at 1.2 3953, and if the market gets up there with divergence still, I'm probably going to short it. Let me see if this lines up with some good price action. Okay, sellers definitely stepped in here. Here, okay, I'm not against it. That's definitely for sure. And it's pretty much in line, almost, not in line, but it's pretty close to the 38.2. I bet it's right on top of the negative 27. But either way, I want to see if this area is going to hold for the swing to the upside. That's what I want to see. So if I short here, probably going to try to take it back just to the 50 EMA, maybe the 200 EMA. So where are those at right now? And then, so yeah, if this market just takes off away from this 50 EMA like it is, and still has the divergence here, I'm sure that like on the RSI, there's probably divergence as well. Right now, it's not super diverged because it is still putting in a lower high. But if price does end up coming up here, I can already start to tell that this momentum isn't going to match this momentum. It's just already lining up. So overall, like I said, come up, probably back down into these. This will start to climb a little bit if the price moves up, and then back down into this. Put a stop, probably like a 2-to-1 stop on that, maybe a 3-to-1 to bring it back down into here. Ultimately, though, you can see the high volume, and this is the tool that I'm starting to use a little bit more on an impulsive move, seeing where the volume is at. So good amount of volume coming all the way down into just the middle of this impulse. That's where the most volume was at. There is still some volume down here. You can see right there. And then there's a good amount up there. But ultimately, I'd want it to come at least a little bit below this, catch that, and then move to the upside. And then, yeah, this lines up nice with the 50 EMA too on the daily. So that would be a good short, in my opinion, for tomorrow. Off the divergence. But like I've said a couple times, news messes up technicals sometimes. Usually these technicals be taken over, but that's on like a swing basis. All right, on UJ struggled to break above here for a couple of years now. And with last week's bearishness, I'm not necessarily leaning towards the bulls at all. Momentum is starting to move to the downside here. Slow line starting to follow. So if that slow line ends up getting below 0, it's definitely a bearish sign. And I know a bunch of people probably have this little trend line drawn, and we're retesting it now, right? So it looks like a pretty good shorting opportunity, but for me, I'm gonna have to wait till it comes up a little bit into these 61.78.6 areas. So let's see, volume down here, there's a lot of volume down here, so that's where I'd expect price to go, and then there's a good amount at the 61.8. Let's go to the 4-hour. There's a nice little impulse right here that might play out. It might not come all the way back up into this area. It might just go from this impulse down. You see this impulse on the MACD has been the biggest impulse to the downside we've seen in quite some time. So, like I said, it might not even make it back up here. I'm going to bring out this tool again and see from here to here. I bet the most volume is right here. Yeah, okay. Because that's where the big drop came out. So if I take it just from here to here, it's probably there still. Okay, yeah. So most of the volume on this big dropout was, in fact, right here. Regardless, for my strategy, I need to wait for it to come up a little higher. I would like for it to come up into the 78 where there's not a lot of interest. That would be more like a wick and then drop in or drop out. But I like the way the structure looks to have changed on UJ. So I do think there's a possibility of this to fall regardless. I'm not going to get into it yet, but if you're like more risky person, it looks like a pretty okay position, to be honest. I'm just going to be patient and try to wait for it to come up a little higher. Okay. And I don't love UJ like that anyway, so. All right, you chef. You chef with the weekly engulfing and the wicks. So this should, this week, start to correct down a little bit. We had this big news candle, basically. It was off of news. And then we're just kind of slowly correcting. But last week's candle looks like it really should continue to the downside this week. I'm liking the way that looks. This candle right here is what caused that. So I'm going to put a zone here. It looks like price just slammed through this little resistance, and I would like to see it come back into that. So that'll be the area that I'm targeting, basically. Overall, I want to see, like, overall, I want to see UChef start to make a move to the upside, really, based off of this type of move here. It came back into the fibs, and then it impulsed really nicely. So I want to see it come back here and come right into this demand area that lines up perfectly with the 61.8. So that's what I'm going to look for and wait for overall. If I can get this volume and see where that's at. Ooh, good amount of volume is all the way down at the 78.6. So I'd love to see that. Hopefully the market will search for that. Let's go to the 4 hour. And last week, I don't think I called it on my live session. I think it was just me and AB talking about this trade setup right here, where they got this shift in momentum, and then it came back into 78, and then just dropped heavy right to TP. That was a good trade. That's pretty much what I look for. That's exactly what it looks like when there's a big shift in momentum, and then you get a retracement that isn't too quick, and usually price will start to head back in the direction. So now, obviously, a big shift in momentum here, and we're just consolidating at this point. So I got 3 setups that I look for, right? Divergence is one. We looked at one of those. I just spoke about this one. The stop hunt type setup is another one that I look for. But this right here is starting to play out possible divergence setup. So when there's a big impulse and price doesn't make a retracement and it just keeps going, that's when I look for some type of divergence. So I'm going to go onto the 1 hour, and you can see how it's a bear flag. No doubt it's a bearish flag. I personally like the bear flags to start to correct this way more than just flat. So it's like a rectangle right here. I don't really care for that. But what I'll be waiting for on this one is my third setup that I like to look for, which is the manipulation setup. So we have these equal lows right here. We have a nice bearish flag, right? So what most people are going to do is they're probably going to sell when this breaks. They might be right, but what I'm going to be waiting for is a break and then a move back up into this little range, right? This would be the range right now. This is kind of based off Wyckoff. So if it breaks through and then comes back into the range, I'll be looking for a fib move down to take up, basically. And I'll be looking for it to come all the way back into this area, high volume area. And this price should smoothly get up here quick. So tomorrow, if the dollar goes bullish off news, you'll probably see this move fast into these areas. Now, if it does move super fast into this area, I'm still gonna look for sells, just probably with a little bit less risk than normal. But ultimately, I'm looking for drops around this area. I'm just gonna keep it supply. And let me bring this tool out and see where most of the volume was at right there. Okay, good amount of volumes right here. Is there any more up here? Yeah, there's some up there. Well, we'll see. I like when the volume lines up with the 61.8, but the volume profile to the right is definitely lining up with it. So I'm going to need to either, if I wanted to play the divergence, so that's another play I could look at. Excuse me. Go from this to there. Bring out the divergence fibs. And that's where I think the market could stop at and reverse right there tomorrow. So if we get a move down there, I'm going to most likely take a play off of that. Does this line up with anything? No. So this is where it gets a little bit risky, just because it is a bearish flag and it could extend way further than that divergence fib. It could go ultimately all the way down into this area. So that'd be the area I would really want to look to buy from overall. So we'll see what happens. Regardless, there's a couple good setups right here for you, Chef, for this week. I like to see that. I really want to see it come down into this zone. And it looks like if I put a little bit more price into it, it's probably going to get all the way down to the 78.6. So for me, I'm going to wait for that 78.6 or either stack on the 61.8, stack on the 78.6, because you can see that there is not a lot of volume. So that's making me question the divergence completely, because if we slip here, if it slips there, it might just go straight down there. Or, sometimes when there's low volume, that's low interest, it basically says no thank you, and it searches the next area of high volume. So we'll see what happens. I'm ultimately got to put risk on your trade regardless. Got to risk it for the biscuit. So it's a setup. I would love it, love it if it faked out and then came back up. That would show me that this next test should be the final test in this, and we should be heading up to the upside, because it does look very white coffee-ish. All right, so that is for the dollar. Let's look at the GBPs. So I pretty much traded the dollar pairs and a couple GBP pairs only. All right. EG is just really annoying and ugly the past couple weeks. There's a zone here, and I'm just going to mark it off with a line, because it's just, this is the area where it's probably going to come down into, to be honest. But with this weekly impulse right here, off of like a kind of a fib level that we've been looking at for a minute, it gave some possibility that price wanted to move up, right? But it hasn't been able to break and hold, really. So the momentum looks like it's starting to diverge on a weekly. Let me see the daily. The daily is showing not a lot of anything. You can see just how sideways it has been. So it does have this bull flag to it, no doubt. And, I do overall expect it to do that, but every time it makes a bullish day, it ends up just pretty much dropping back down below that day. As you can see right here, we had a really nice bullish day, and then the next day pretty much came back down. So I'm personally going to be waiting for EG to really, really do something big. Not even playing. Like right here, I know this move, I took a loss on one of my accounts just because I was like, oh, here's the move, and then psych. So playing it right here probably isn't the worst idea just because it's been ranging so much, but I'm not really even feeling it, to be honest. I'm not caring too much for this area. Let me see how much more to go down here is there. So it broke out from this area, and we still haven't technically cleaned up that area. That's where that'd be like the last final area I might look to buy from. There's a good amount of divergence right here though, so it could move from here. It might be worth taking a shot at just because it's been so rangy, and in a ranging market, that's, I mean, what you want to look for, tops and bottoms technically. So it might be something worth taking a shot at with low risk. But I can almost see it doing my setup that I want, breaking these lows, and then coming back in. If it can do that, I'll definitely look to buy. But I'm not about to just buy it right now because let's see if it can break. Man, this mouse, magic mouse from iMac or whatever. All right, if it breaks here, I'll be more interested. If it breaks here, it's still not. I'm still not very interested in it, and I might as well just take these off because it's so sideways those don't even matter. But yeah, it's a possibility, definitely. I think I'm gonna wait personally for more confirmation before buying it, just because it's just not been my favorite pair lately. So let me see what these other GBPs look like. If they look bearish, because I know, like I said here, this looks like it could go up into these areas and then fall. So that means EG would look to drop and then pop, which is kind of like what I said it might do. So let me look at GJ and GA. So GJ has been just on a run the past couple weeks, and it hasn't really died yet or super corrected yet. This is kind of the area that it's held at. Nice little supply. But it, like I said, it hasn't changed structure or anything yet on the weekly. In fact, last week it gave a wick to the downside. So, and we are starting to see some momentum to the upside a little bit on the daily. So this might have been that pullback that it needed, that ABC, and then we could see it move up. Now, I'm not trying to buy it just because of that. It's still in a technically lower low, lower high situation on the daily. When you get into the 4 hour, it looks like structure might be starting to shift though. Not completely yet, so looks a little sideways, or if anything, I'm still kind of bearish on it, but that weekly candle's making me question that. So let me see what we got on here. This area right here looks like it's definitely going to get taken out before it drops. If that's the case, you can see high volume is up here. If it breaks where we're at pretty much right now, it's most likely going to make a move to the upside pretty fast. There's a divergence with this as well. Let me see, actually, did this candle take that out? Yeah, it did. So that might be that exact spot right there. Might be a sniper move on GJ. Let me see this from here to here. At the 78.6 of that impulse with divergence. So there's some confirmation that this could drop. Let me see what the divergence fib looks like. I just don't like that weekly candle. Yeah, so this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to put this here. And look for some divergence setup off of this all the way up here. You can see high volume. This right here could, I mean, if this plays out with this type of stop loss right here and it makes new lows, that could be a trade that really all you need for the week. But it's also pretty risky, right? So we'll see how that plays out. If there is some type of bearish impulse before it gets down there, because even on this climb right here that we're getting, there's, you know, divergence, making higher highs. This is not. So I see this possibly turning around at least for the short term, and then we'll see what it does longer term. But I'll be looking for shorts around 15 or 153.80-ish. And it really looks risky, but it could definitely pay out big. Weekly on GA, last week was bullish, starting to break above here, but if it comes back in, that'll definitely be a bearish sign. This big old move here, you know, the fibs are way up high on that, so it's not even close to that, not worth doing. Nothing's really, I mean, on the MACD it's bullish, on the weekly, definitely. On the daily though, we're getting some heavy divergence. So this to me is leaning towards the downside, especially with this little pattern that we're seeing right here. Some wicks. Yesterday was a little bit of a doji type candle. So I'm leaning towards the bear side if there's some setup on the lower time frame. Just a lot of wicks up here. A little bit of divergence. A little bit of a trend break. Let's see. No structure has formed yet. Super bearish though. So to me, I need to see some bearish structure that's formed on these lower time frames before I'm confirming anything. So right here, would love to see this break. Even if, I mean, there is some slightly lower lows and lower highs on the 1 hour right there. So like for the very lower time frames, I'm sure there was a really good setup right here, especially where it impulsed down, retraced. That was a really good looking move right there. And then, I mean, if it doesn't break here, it's probably going to hold here. So let me see where this is at on the weekly. I don't have those on the daily or the weekly. So yeah, this is just going to come right into this bullish candle if it holds here. So it could do something like that, but I'm going to look for shorting opportunities on the GBPs until they go completely bullish, because they are all kind of setting up to me. EG's setting up to where it can move to the upside. I need to change this to blue. Come on. And GU setting up to me that it should at least retrace and then go up. GJ, same thing, retrace once it will go up and then start to drop based off the divergence. There's a lot of openness down here that I think is going to fill. And then GA, to me, I need to see a little bit more before I confirm that the GBPs are going to drop, but I think they have a possibility of getting weak. Okay, EA, and then we'll look at gold and the indices and the crypto market. Stupid, wild crypto market. So weekly on EA, kind of given an indecision last week. Didn't really know which way it wanted to go. I'm not liking that. kind of just means to chill a little bit, right? It like wanted to go down, but then it really made a big move up. But then by the end of the week, it came back down. So, you know, it's in an area right here where it broke through. So you got to be careful if you're looking for shorts because it could just reject right here and just make a higher high. So I'm not really loving that for the bears. It does look more corrective. So you could take this from here to here and expect a bullish move here, or from here to here, which most likely is what I'm going to keep it. It's pretty close to that 61.8. Let me see. This area is still in my face, so this move down, move up, that area is still looking like that's where price is going to get to. Let me go to the 1 hour and see. It's just kind of corrective at this point, though. We've gotten two nice impulsive moves, and then it's just starting to correct slowly. So to me, it still looks like it has a chance to move to the upside. And I think that 78.6 off this impulse might be an okay spot to play for the bulls. I don't really like going against, I don't like when I'm looking at GA and it looks bullish or bearish and then this looks bullish. So we'll see this little flag right here. Let it come down into the 78.6 and then see if it makes a move up. It might be something that I look at once it gets down in here to wait for it to do something like this and then impulse out on the lower time frame and then play that lower time frame impulse instead of just trying to play this longer term, because this would be a little bit deeper of a stop than I really like to play with. I don't really care for 60 pip stops, but that's probably what it is looking like to me. Just so everyone knows, these pairs up here are definitely the ones that I will love. I love playing these pairs way more than these. These move a lot more whenever I'm not looking, like when I'm asleep, because I don't wake up for London session for shit. So, all right, gold. Gold's another pair that I probably haven't taken a trade on gold in 2 or 3 weeks because it has just been not the pair to trade, in my opinion. Let's see. Weekly, it looks like it wants to start to climb a little bit. I'm still in favor of it possibly dropping off right here like this. A lot of people are very bullish on gold, but it looks like it might have its run completed. We got this move right here. Daily is just setting up for a beautiful bear flag overall. So as long as it's slow like this after this impulse and it just is slow to get up, I'll be looking for a drop overall. And it might really be something I try to swing down because I do not think gold is bullish really anymore. I think it's going to start to slow down as the dollar's supposed to rise based off of the overall interest rates in the market. So the chances of gold rising with the dollar is very low. Okay, and then you can see this area right here where there was a drop and then it chilled and then it dropped again. It's called a drop base drop right there. It's kind of a demand pattern. And I mean, it just lines up really well with the fibs. So I'm going to draw this out here. And you can see that 61.8. It's got a lot of volume with it right there. Let me just bring in this and see where the volume is at. A little bit of volume up here. A lot of volume down here, obviously, because of the range. But either way, I'm going to be patient and wait for price to get up into there. I might try to buy it up into that at some point just because it needs to get up in there. This area right here might be the spot that I look for buying opportunities just because it made this quick move down, quick move up. So a little bit of manipulation was done here. So I'm gonna highlight this area and mark it off as manipulation. And this is the only time I'm going down to this lower time frame, right? So these lows were just swept off with this candle, and then we made new highs. So this is going to be a spot that I most likely look for a trade opportunity. So this candle here, the candle that manipulated, right? Big manipulation. Then we got the move up. That'll be the spot that I look to buy gold at. And I haven't really liked trading gold, so it's going to be a low risk for me. But regardless, it looks not bad to take this back up. Now, I know it has resisted in this area a couple times, so it would be better to see it. It would be better to see it break up and then come all the way back down there just to confirm that the bulls are really in. Because if you look on this on the 4 hour, right, it's kind of not wanted to break this area quite yet, and we're coming back into it right now. So it's questionable, definitely questionable, but with that type of move, that's what I'll be looking for, to come into that and then to move up all the way into this area. So it'd be something that I would hold or do my best to hold into that. So for gold right now, 70 pip stop isn't the worst. Move up into that. So we'll see. It could be, very well could be an area where gold does decide to stop at right here, just because, I mean, we had some nice supply. This is a little drop, base drop here as well, and we're right back into that. So I could be, definitely could be wrong about gold making it all the way up here, but I'm liking the no volume right here, the low volume here, so if it comes back into there, it should reject and then move up pretty quickly. So we'll see about that. Okay, the VIX is going to be ugly. So I'm still looking for this thing to pop off. Last week it had a nice pop and then it dropped. So this is going to, if you don't know about the VIX, kind of helps determine which way the indices should go. Looks like it still has a little bit to the downside, to be honest, which means indices should just keep making these crazy higher highs that they've been making. It had such a nice impulsive move here, retrace, and then impulse. So what I'll be waiting for this week on the indices, I'm almost always bearish on them, just because they're so high up right now for almost no reason, in my opinion. I know U.S. has kind of stabilized back since COVID and everything, but to me, there's still a lot that hasn't really came back. I know a lot of people who haven't really stabilized back in. It looks like just maybe the major companies have, which is what the indices are. But regardless, I'll be looking for a pop in this. If this can pop, I think we're about to start to move up into the 20s again. I think this area will break and we'll hit that 20 area. So with that being said, I'll need to see some bearish movement in these indices first before I do anything, because I know on the weekly they are just extremely bullish. But what you should notice is that volume is gone. There's no volume. You want to see big volume with big moves. And if there's no volume, that's basically just retail buying into this. Let me actually bring out like a Bollinger Band, and we're at the top of a weekly Bollinger Band. Daily, we're getting close to the top of a daily 4 hour. We're getting close to the top of the 4 hour. So to me, it's showing signs that there should be at the very least a correction in the market. Okay, at the very least a correction. Last week with US 30, it did do exactly what I wanted it to do, right? It gave this drop, it retraced to the 61.8 and then dropped off again. So that's basically what I'm looking to happen again in this market, right? Drop, big impulsive drop. Once it corrects, see it drop out again. That's basically what I'm looking forward to happen. Right now, on the lower time frame on US 30, there is divergence. We see the higher time frame if it's doing the same thing, right? Let's see, there's some divergence on the higher time frames as well, just low volume. That's what I'm looking at on these, just extreme low volume. I know the daily just pretty much broke all-time highs almost, so it might not be the timing might be off on this. It might still have a run up to go, but I'm looking for bearish opportunities still regardless. I'm not buying in when it's at all-time highs. I've learned my lessons, and I mean, you know, it has still just kept going up and up and up, but it's like this. Every time it hits these all-time highs, there's usually like a drop, okay? It goes and hits all-time highs, and then there's a drop. So now we just broke all-time highs. I'm expecting a drop situation right here, just because it's what it's been doing, and so I'll be waiting for some type of bearish opportunity. I know, like I said, it just broke all-time highs. It might not be just yet, so I'm not just going to sell right here. But if we start to break any type of structure, then I'll be looking for some type of shorting opportunities. And I personally like playing US 30 more than the NASDAQ or the S&P. So they seem to be a little bit more bullish right now. Especially the NASDAQ. The NASDAQ seems to be the most bullish. It just doesn't stop going up. But the US 30 has more, to me, of like a topping pattern. So it's still risky. I haven't traded them. I missed that trade opportunity on US 30 last week. I haven't traded them in maybe a month or two. But just looking at the overall market and seeing I'm invested in some stocks as well. So I like to just make sure I look at the indices to make sure the market's flowing. To me, I don't think it's the best time to invest into any stock right now, just because these are at such high levels that we should see a correction and then, you know, that move to the upside. Just like that coronavirus correction that we had, that right there would have been just the best time in the world to start to look to invest into stocks. But I personally thought it was going to keep going lower. So indices aren't really my thing. I can call them out more on a lower time frame, but these higher time frames, they just keep going. They really do. They literally just keep going. So enough with the indices. Let's look at the crypto market, and then we'll be done. So Bitcoin, right, on the weekly, it did show rejection again last week. This area has held pretty much very nicely. And as long as it holds here, I think there's an opportunity for it to go up. Now I'm going to take these Bollinger Bands off now. As long as it holds here, I believe it should continue to the upside eventually. On the daily, it's not looking, you know, great yet. It's still, to me, like I've kind of been saying for a while, I was looking for this to be a spring for the Wyckoff accumulation pattern, and then I wanted this to be the test, and everything looked great, but now we're just kind of going sideways. If we don't see a bullish day that literally like breaks through here with some volume, this is probably coming down to test at 30K again, especially with yesterday's candle. But it is a low volume pullback, so that's okay. It's not a bad sign. And you know, ultimately, it's still kind of correcting more than it is like just dropping and making like huge lower lows and lower highs. So to me, this doesn't look terrible, but it also, you know, it needs to break out. If it can break out of this right here and form this higher high right here, that will be a great sign, in my opinion, for something like this to happen. and then ultimately come all the way back up into this area where we really need 40K to break. So this is pretty much the range that it's not wanted to leave yet, and it hasn't even wanted to leave the middle of the range yet. So the middle of the range is around 36, and it's rejected off of it multiple times. It barely missed it here. It came above it, but then came below it, rejected it. So it needs to ultimately break above this 36K area. And I'm just going to put it exactly at 36. Okay. And it needs to bust through that. And if it can't, it's probably going to hit this 30 area again. And I'll put this at 30 exactly. And then the 41 is going to be the number for the top that I'll just keep up here. 41K. And it's pretty much that simple on this one, guys. Yesterday's move looks like it definitely could extend one more time to the bottom of this. So I'm really not looking to buy it just yet. Like I said, I'm going to wait for something to pop off. And I do want to try to catch somewhat of a leveraged position on Bitcoin eventually. But just I don't think I'm ready for it yet. This looks like it really is going to drop another time down here, especially just based off of fibs and trend lines and patterns, all this stuff. It looks like it's going to come up here and then end up falling one more time. But hopefully it doesn't do that. Y'all know I'm very bullish on this overall long term, so I'm waiting for the long term to really start to play out. This could be a very ugly inverted head and shoulders right here, right? And that's what I'm saying. If we break this neckline, that'll be a kind of a bullish signal. But until then, it's looking kind of like it's gonna get one more drop on my head. All right, Ethereum. And basically, you know, Bitcoin right now has the most dominance. It's going to run the market. Whatever Bitcoin's doing, most of these are all going to look very similar. So I'm not going to go too into detail. This is the area where Ethereum has held. As long as this holds, you know, it shouldn't go any lower. On the daily, it's setting up for some divergence, big time. So, you know, I'm just waiting for some type of break of structure, really, to look for these to really make this move to the upside. You can see right here when there was a break of structure broke, it came back and tapped it and made this move up. Then it showed this three-wave divergence from here to here, from here to here, and we're getting that correction now. So ultimately, you know, here's a little structure area that it might hold at, but it's kind of got this little ugly head and shoulders. Regardless, I really, really need to see like this 17 at the lowest hold for Ethereum. If not, probably going to get some lower pricing that's way lower than I want to see. And I'll keep this here for now because it is holding this. And if this does hold and we get kind of a push up like this, then that'll be an area to look for buys. Litecoin didn't drop near as much as the other ones did yesterday. I noticed that. Litecoin also has more of a falling wedge pattern to it than the other ones do, right? Which is a bullish signal. Let's go to the weekly real quick, see what this looks like on the weekly. And draw this little area out that it needs to hold pretty much around here. If not, we're probably going to see like 65 cent or $65 Litecoin. Litecoin's going to move very much if Bitcoin can pop. I feel like Litecoin's going to have a big run up soon if and when Bitcoin pops up. It underperformed last bull run, so it should start to perform a little bit better This this looks very similar to Bitcoin though. It had this drop. Probably going to do one more drop at the least. And so I'm not really bullish on it yet. Looks like it's going to come straight into that area. So I'm going to wait and be patient. I don't like the way it looks right now for the bulls. If it can kind of come out of this little, yeah, I don't really see any bullish opportunities yet. Maybe if it breaks some structure, that'll give it an opportunity. We'll see. And then XRP, it's right at 63 cents right now. XRP is very cheap, very, very cheap right now. It's actually in an area where even with the structure of it, it looks like it should hold here and make a move up. So I'm liking that look of it, you know, from a fib perspective. If we go very low to high, it hit the 78.6 and it's, you know, it's in a good area overall for the way I trade. It just hasn't changed any type of structure on like the daily yet. So it has a little bit of a falling wedge to it as well. Not as clean, but definitely still has that look to it. It's got the divergence with it. The daily momentum is almost starting to pop up. So on XRP, if it can pop out of this right here, I'm liking it to start to move up to like 80 cents. And that's a pretty nice jump. Let me mark this level off right here that I think it could get to faster than, yeah, exactly at like 80 cents. So that's where I see that going. And if it can start to break up like that, that's going to be this almost the signal that I think the bulls are starting to come back into play. And before you know it, this thing will probably double. Now, it really has to break this swing to be super, like, change in structure type scenario. You can see this area was pretty strong in the past, so it needs to break up above 92 cents for me to really say, like, structure is breaking or anything like that. But for now, I think that 80 cent target is looking okay, just as long as it doesn't, you know, break through this pattern. So I'm liking where XRP is overall, to be honest. So I'll be watching, you know, maybe these lower time frames to see if it can bust through this pattern. But that's it for me tonight, guys. If I don't see any other pairs in the chat, so just be waiting on some of this dollar news. Basically, I don't see a whole lot going on the dollar right now. It looks like, I mean, really I'm focusing tomorrow on these divergence plays. So the GU divergence, as long as that's still there for tomorrow, I'll be looking at that. UJ, is that one? No, UJ needed to come up more. UChef is one of them. See the divergence here. And if the market does start to come down, I don't think it's going to even get close to this momentum. So we'll probably see something like this. GJ has another look coming all the way up into here. You can see the divergence is there. It comes up here. Look for a possible short. And those are probably going to be the three that I focus on tomorrow. I'll be waiting to see if the structure breaks right here. I'll be looking for that. I probably will not play EA right here, just based off of what everything else looks like. I like how everything else looks compared to this. And then, oh yeah, gold. If gold can come down into here, I'll probably look for something like that. So that's it, guys. I appreciate y'all for coming on. I'll try to come on a couple more times this week, maybe. So for everyone in next wave, expect an analysis pretty much every night this week, and then Abdul's going to go on almost every morning this week. So I know Abdul's coming on tomorrow at 6 a.m. giving free trades out. So hopefully some of these line up with what he's seeing too.